All right, I'm joined now by Brent for this week's version of the Odds Report. Brent, a risk manager down at DSI Sportsbook in beautiful Costa Rica. How's it going, man?
Everything's going fantastic. Looking forward to these big games this weekend. And, of course, we're in the full swing of just about everything else to be going on. The only thing we're missing now is CFL's in the rearview mirror, but that was a fantastic game that I'm sure you watched.
No. Actually, I did not. Sorry. But it did look like it was a lot of fun. You know what was kind of amazing was, and I'm sure you know this because I'm sure you go out to Vegas at least once or twice a year. The amount of Canadians that go to Vegas is incredible, and not one of them that I talked to had a good word to say about the CFL.
Really? Wow. No, I think CFL is fantastic action. I mean, it's so entertaining. I don't know. I quite like it.
Oh, all right. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's a conversation that you and I can have another day. And before we get into some of these specific games here, I do want to ask you about this. In terms of the handle that you've got so far, is action basically what you expected? Is it a little bit heavier? I mean, we know it's going to get heavier over the weekend, but to this point, as we're recording here on Thursday night, pretty close to what your projections have been?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the action's basically, on a per game basis, it's a little bit higher. In terms of total handle, it's not all that higher. And the thing is, too, we kind of touched on the start of the show, is that there's so much going on right now that, a lot of people are kind of managing their money in terms of, not laying down money right now on Saturday games because they've got so much going on in terms of both hockey and basketball every single day of the week now. So, a lot of people do kind of hold back a little bit in terms of, not playing as many games perhaps that they would early in the week. They'll wait till day of game. But, I mean, on game day, our handle, is going to be basically the same as it would be on a typical Saturday full of 75 games, even though we have, not a whole lot of games this weekend, looking at 20 games or so in college football. But our handle in terms of dollar volume should be almost the same.
All right, well, let's look here on Friday night. We'll go ahead and start with that one in the Pac-12. Stanford takes on USC, game 303, 304 on the board. Seen some sharp action on the side to kick things off here today.
Yeah, I got the Friday game. This is, a typical, spot for them, I think, Friday night and playing on their lights and, the only game in town. These West Coast teams are kind of used to that stuff. And obviously this is a big game. And Stanford is up to, USC is up to a 4-point favorite now. And that was sharp action. That did move that number. I do have, a wager count slightly favoring USC as well. But I've got, in terms of my count, the action is not too bad. I do have more money now on USC because of sharp action that did come in on them. USC -3 and -05 is where that came in. So there was kind of initial, just dipped down on the juice with USC. I think they opened like 3 -110 or 3 -15 and dropped to actually 3 -05. And then since then it's just got hammered up on USC. So we're sitting and holding 4 right now. Like I said, I've got, a wager count that not, it's not too bad. It's not all that one-sided on USC. I kind of expected a little bit more, but sharp action with USC as well. So, it wouldn't be surprised surprise me just because of my early wager count favoring USC that this number could creep up to 4.5. And I mean, at some point, obviously, you get money back the other way. Just depend on how much you want to move back the other way. But if we get to 4.5 and get nothing back the other way, I think we probably just sit there just because I am getting two-way action, just the early hit from the sharps at -3, -05.
And it's really important to point out the -05 on the juice there, because if this was -3, -110, -3 flat is what they call it, or -3, 115, this is a bet that may not have happened. I mean, obviously USC is the sharper side here with this number going up to 4, but that 5 cents of juice, when you're talking about being on a key number, is very significant.
Yeah, we talk about this quite often, that people just kind of, it's easy to say, I'm laying 3. What's the difference if I lay -05 or -115? And again, it's just about your long-term win percentage and long-term break-even points. You're talking a difference of like almost, it's over 2% in terms of the difference of your break-even point, going from 05 to 115. So, it's always crucial and take that in mind. And obviously, we do, understand that most people have more than one place to play, and that's why it makes sense to have more than one place to play. If you can lay 105 in one place or 110 in the other, I hope you make the right choice and lay 05 where you can.
So in terms of this game here, and then we'll move away from this one, do you envision the public being pretty heavy on Southern Cal then as well? I mean, I know you said that your wager count is pretty balanced at this point. The money favors USC a little bit because of that sharp action. Do you think that this is a split game for the public, or is the public coming in on the favorite?
I think they're coming in slightly more on USC, and again, USC. I mean, both teams are highly ranked, in the top 15 there. So there's a lot of respect for both teams, obviously, and the thing too is kind of like when in doubt. I think a lot of people do tend to look at the past games and the previous experience. And of course, when you're getting these conference championship games, you're looking at teams who have played each other before already, and you kind of look back and say, well, how did that game go and stuff like that. So these two teams did play way back in September. So that was a long time ago. USC did take that game too. So I think people will fall back on a game like that. I think USC pretty much dominated that game as well. They outgained them by around 300 yards. So it was quite a one-sided victory. And of course USC's won 4 or 5 in a row as well. So both these teams are coming in in good shape. And it's a good game, and I think it's a good game for us too, because that it is like a number 4.5 now, where I think that's all it's going to take really to split action. And aside from the early hit from the Sharps, we're sitting in a good spot.
All right, well, let's move to Saturday here, and you've got some big-time games. You've got a massive total in the Memphis and Central Florida game. You've got that North Texas, Florida Atlantic game, which is exciting. The Power 5, 4 of the Power 5 have their conference championship games, of course, with that Pac-12 on Friday night. And then you've got the wrap-up of the Sun Belt regular season. So I'm sure that as you guys are looking at the screen and checking out the wager counts and the dollar amounts, the handle, everything that's going on for this game, it has to be pretty interesting to see the contrast between these massive, enormous draw types of games and then the Sun Belt.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You do sit back and look at a game like we're going to talk about here with Idaho and Georgia State, and you look at at your money and your wager counts on a game like that. And it's just kind of like is anyone going to be watching this game? Is anyone going to be betting this game at all? And then you look at your counts on games like Georgia, Auburn, and Ohio State and Wisconsin. It's just like forget about it.
All right, so this Idaho and Georgia State game 305, 306, a number that really hasn't met a whole lot of resistance throughout the week. Sharp action on one of the sides here.
Yeah, we've got sharp action on this. And again, I'm sure most people listening in are waiting to hear about the big games, but I do have sharp action on this, so I've got to pass it along. And that did come in early on the week on Georgia State -4. I do have a wager count almost 2-1 favoring Georgia State as well. So again, like you touched on, it's not like I've got a ton of bets on Georgia State or involved in this game at all. But I do have the public going with Georgia State, the favorite at home. Sharps bet that game -4, and we're up to 6 right now. I mean, the only sharp bet that I took on this was obviously -4. I haven't seen any more sharps pile in on this game with Georgia State, but just public action went the same way with them, so we're up to 6 right now.
And that's one of those spots where you do just move the number right through that dead zone, right? Because if you get sharp action back on Idaho, that's cool, and it kind of balances out the hit you took on Georgia State. But you have a pretty good idea of where this line's going to go, so you move this one a little bit more aggressively.
Yeah, definitely. And we talk about numbers in games like this more than anything else when you're expecting your handle's going to be a little bit less. And, of course, when the public kind of gives you an indication they're going the same way, you're definitely more aggressive going straight from 4 to 5, from 5 to 6. You don't really hesitate in terms of making those big jumps. Now, if you're talking about a game like, Georgia and Auburn and you're getting money on one side at the +3, you're not going down to +2. You're going to 2.5 right away because you're going to get so much action and a good chance that you're going to get split action as well.
All right, let's go to game 311, 312, which is in the Sun Belt, but this is a tricky good game here with Troy now a road favorite against Arkansas State, game 311, 312. So some interesting betting action out there on the side, but it's the total that's drawn sharp investment there at DSI.
Yeah, it is interesting on this one. Like the wager count on this game too, it's actually not bad in terms of the action I've got. For some reason, it could be the fact that it's an interesting game, as you touched on, kind of intriguing. I do have decent two-way action on the side, although this line has flipped. Arkansas State did open as a 2-point favorite, and they're basically Troy is like -1 favorite, or even like a pick out there. So the action in terms of the betting volume on the side definitely heading Troy's way. Going from like I said, Arkansas State a small favorite to a small dog now. What I saw here, though, was sharp action on the total of this one. That went over. Took sharp action on the over 58 here. This number I do notice opened like at 57.5 at some places, and it's up to 60 right now. So my sharp action came in at 58. I've got a count favoring the over as well. So again, not a heavy count in terms of the wager number of bets that I've taken, but I do have a count favoring the over as well. So the public, as they tend to in games like this, betting the over, and I have sharp action as well. So 58 straight to 59. We're up to 60 right now. Again, it's not a crazy count. I'm not going to get a ton of volume on this one, but I do have a wager count that favors the over as well, almost like 2-1 favoring the over. So I could see this one creep back up if I don't get anything back. And again, it's not like we're sitting here thinking the public's suddenly going to bet the under. So it's probably going to be a sharp bet that if you see this number go back down, it's probably going to be a sharp number that drives that.
All right, let's go to game 319, 320 here, the least talked about conference championship game of the weekend. Akron takes on Toledo. You generally don't see a 3-touchdown favorite in a conference championship game. That's what we've got here in this one, though. And we have seen this line move up a little bit, but as far as DSI goes, the sharp involvement that you've seen been on the total for this game.
Yeah, this number, has maybe it's almost like a correlation between the two in terms of the fact that the spread has gone up. Toledo opened as an 18.5-point favorite. They're up to like a 21 or 21.5-point favorite. Quite a discrepancy for what you would call, the MAC championship game. But Toledo obviously, having a decent season at 10-2 overall. And over money is where I got sharp action on this one. Now, again, it's never a good spot for me when I get over action, especially on a game involving Toledo. The public just always bets their games over. I have a wager count almost 4-1 favoring the over. So that's a whole lot of bets on the over. And sharp money came in on this total as well, over 54.5. So quite a move now, all the way up to 58.5. So that's a substantial move, 54.5 all the way up to 58.5. And again, I got sharp money and public money going the same way.
And, of course, that game being played in a dome, so maybe that's something that's kind of influencing the action here on the over, figuring a team like Toledo that's known for really explosive plays, getting to play inside on the fast track, seems like that should be something that benefits them a little bit more than it would benefit Akron. All right, let's talk about one of those huge games that's out there on the board now. That's game 321, 322. Georgia takes on Auburn, and I noticed that right as we started recording here, this number went down again.
Yeah, this actually did go down further when we were kind of prepping for the show and talking about the games that I had sharp action on. There was early sharp action on Georgia +3. It was looking at -2 actually, just as you mentioned, just like moments ago, down to 1.5 now. So I'm getting continued action on Georgia. Now, the interesting with this one is I have a wager count of 2-1 favoring Auburn. So I've got more public money and more individual bets favoring Auburn. Yet this line keeps dropping, which means sharp money is coming in on Georgia. Now, I took action on the sharp play from Georgia at +3. But if this number continues to drop, as you've seen it come from 2.5 down to 2, down to 1.5, where it is now, you can suspect that other books who have public action like we do, they've got the same wager count situation. You can imagine they've probably got a 2-1 wager count favoring Auburn. Yet that sharp money and big bets is driving the number back down. So I would expect that maybe sharp action came back on Georgia 2.5 and drive us to take us down to where we are as well. And again, these are games where you've seen teams play each other before. We talked about the wager count slightly favoring USC, who won their game versus Stanford. This is one where, Auburn obviously got that win as well versus Georgia. So the public, I guess, kind of by default goes with the same side with that big victory they had. And again, it wasn't that long ago, just like November 11th when these two played. But I've got public action going one way and sharp action the other way. So that's a good spot for me when I've got the public money going the other way. And again, it's about 2-1 favoring Auburn. But, over the course of time, generally the sharps are not going to bet, Georgia at a line where, they could have got 3 and 2.5. And now they're going to grab 1.5 unless they really love Georgia. If this game goes down a pick, you're going to know there's a whole lot of sharp money on Georgia. So it's kind of a nice spot for me that I can sit at a 2 or 1.5 and still draw public money the other way.
But I have to think that when this line went up at 3, you're probably thinking that was a pretty good number. I mean, in all honesty, Auburn blew out Georgia in the head-to-head matchup. Auburn's coming off of the Iron Bowl win over Alabama. So you have to think that Auburn's perception is pumped up a little bit. I know you don't like to speculate on the thought process of the sharp bettors that are out there because, they're sharp for a reason, but are you surprised that, at least to this point, 3 hasn't worked out?
Yeah, no, I definitely am. But, I thought maybe we dropped down to 2.5 and bounced back between the two numbers. I could see that for sure. You touched on how these two teams played before and how that went. And Auburn, they're running such a string in terms of, the big wins they've had, besides the Georgia win, Alabama last week. So, there's a whole lot of kind of a swell of Auburn, support there. And, it makes sense as well. So I kind of thought that the fact that 3, it doesn't surprise me at all that 3 got sharp action. I kind of almost expected that. But I just thought that number 2.5 and 3 would be able to bounce between the two of them.
And I'll be curious to see. What do you think? Do you think that on game day, because we talked about this on several shows already, we've seen significant game day investment that has done a lot of influencing of the market. What do you think we get on game day here for this one? Do you think we see some sharp guys come in on Auburn? Do you think we see continued sharp money on Georgia? Do you feel it'll be balanced? What are you thinking?
Honestly, I mean, like as you said, we're just kind of, reading the tea leaves here and kind of guessing where things go. But I just get the feeling this number's going to hang around. Now that I've seen it go from, from 3, the sharp action doesn't surprise me that it dropped down to 2.5 and 2. But to keep going down the way it has, I've got a sneaky suspicion that sharp action has come in somewhere else to draw on Georgia as well. So I think 1.5 and 1 is where this number is going to end up. But again, I'm just guessing that we're just kind of throwing stuff out there. But just the way I see it going, 1.5 or and 1 is probably where it's going to end up.
And I think that's so fascinating because, like I said, you've got that recency bias with Auburn. You've got that head-to-head result. Obviously, this game being played at a neutral site in Atlanta, so maybe a little bit of a home field advantage for Georgia as well, having played in Atlanta last week, familiar with the area and all that type of thing. But this is a fascinating one to me because, it's kind of a lot like the Ohio State-Wisconsin situation that you have over there at DSI now. And as I'm looking at the screen, 5.5, the number out there, Georgia played in the weaker half of the SEC. Wisconsin played in the far weaker half of the Big Ten. And to see both of those teams getting a little bit of interest here this week, it does catch me by surprise. And maybe I'm just coming from a public mindset. But these are the things that you can really break down and really dig deep into with a limited number of games on the card. And those two things really do surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, talking about that the Ohio State-Wisconsin game, I do have a wager count almost 2-1 favoring Wisconsin. So I've got, public money is definitely, behind Wisconsin in this one.
Really? That is wow. Okay.
That is wow. Yeah, no, I mean, it is.
I never expect public money against Ohio State.
Yeah, no, that's a good spot for us too. Yeah, because it doesn't happen very often. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a team who's done pretty well overall in terms of the regular season. But yeah, I mean, I think people can get lost in terms of looking at records and stuff like that, and you have to look at the conference that they play in, the side of the conference, who plays a tougher schedule and all that kind of stuff. Whereas lots of people will look at a game like that and just say, well, look at this team. Wow, they haven't lost a game all year. I think they must be pretty good.
Interesting. I'll be very interested then to see what that line does on game day here on Saturday, because I honestly felt like you'd see kind of a swell of Ohio State action. To me, it feels like sharp people are waiting to see if JT Barrett is officially cleared and ready to go. And then I think that's going to kind of open the floodgates on that game. So who knows? I mean, I guess we'll see how it plays out, but that is stunning to me to hear that the public is against Ohio State there. And maybe that's just because they're rooting against Ohio State. I don't know. One more game that we're going to look at here on the college football side, the Big 12 championship game. TCU takes on Oklahoma. Oklahoma 7-point favorite in this one. First time we have a Big 12 championship game, and it's in Arlington, Texas. So a little bit of a home field advantage for TCU with the shorter travel, but Oklahoma's fans should be well represented here as well. The side is pretty much sat on 7 throughout the week, but you have seen some totals involvement there at DSI.
Yeah, you talk about the 7 there. That's kind of what we expected almost with the Georgia Auburn game. We kind of figured we'd be at 3, maybe 3 and juice and stuff like that, and that would do the job for us. But the 7 has definitely worked for us with Oklahoma. I've got decent action on this game on the side. My wager count on the spread itself is about 2-1 favoring Oklahoma. Again, when I talk about wager count, that's the individual number of bets I've taken, not a dollar volume there. So I've got almost 2-1 action favoring Oklahoma, which maybe no surprise. We did open -7, dog 15. We're 7 flat right now. But sharp action on this one is on the over. Over 61.5 is where that came, and we're sitting at 63.5 right now. So I've got no surprise that I've got public action on the over, but I got sharp action going on the over as well. About 2-1 my wager count favoring the over 61.5 is where the sharps came in. The public kind of just tailed it up to where it is now. So I can see this number keep going that way. Eventually someone might bite back the other way. And you have to understand too that there's different groups of sharps out there. It's not like there's one sharp who dominates the whole market. So we've seen games where you get totals especially where they get banged back and forth, and you can throw up like an 80 and an 81, and some guy go under the 81 every time you throw it up, and some guy go over the 80 every time you throw it up. And cases like that, you've just got different groups going back and forth against each other. This sets up as one of those games that you might see under money come back the other way. Again, these two teams played each other a couple of weeks ago, so you kind of got an indication of what the right number might be. 61.5, just seeing, I don't know, even looking at it, it kind of felt right at the same time, just because you kind of thought that sharp action might be interested in the under this one, but so far I got sharp action over and public money driving the number back over. So if this number drops back down, you can be sure that it's sharp money that does it, because the public has clearly shown they're not going to be betting this game under.
We talk about looking for context clues, or as you called it, reading the tea leaves. It seems to me that it's a bad thing for TCU for this total to be going up, because the hallmark of this TCU team, the strength of this TCU team, is the defense. So it kind of makes me wonder if maybe we do start to see a little bit of Oklahoma investment. But again, I mean, that's maybe just me kind of reaching for something.
Yeah, no, but it is kind of, again, part of the show is just talk about the wager counts that we have and kind of speculate a little bit on which way things are going to go. And like I said, when I talk about stuff like sharp money coming in on the over 61.5 in this game and the public going the same way. So, you've seen the sharp go one way, and if this number gets high enough and you see it get bet back down, if you close it at 61.5, you can know you had two-way action that was sharp action, because again, we talk about one of the common themes, especially in big market games like this, is the public is going to bet the over. So when the number drops, it's quite easy to take a look at your screen and say, well, why did that number drop? And you know the answer.
All right, well, let's go to Sunday here. We'll go over to the NFL card. And interesting NFL card here. I mean, at least you don't have, 17-point favorites covering like you saw last week with the New England Patriots, which, man, I feel bad for you, Brent. The Patriots and Eagles are both kind of like the Alabama Crimson Tide last year. Like, I don't know how much higher you can go, but they keep covering.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Eagles are the new thorn in my side for sure. I've kind of got used to the Patriots being there, and you kind of, expect that money to come. But, I mean, the Eagles money just keeps on coming, and it's kind of, you keep going higher. And, even this weekend, take a look at their game at Seattle. I mean, that's one of those games where, it's not on our hit list to talk about on this part of the show. But, that line opened at 3, and it's up to like 5.5 and 6 pretty much across the board. And you just kind of, you get the feeling at some point you're going to see sharp money come back the other way. That's just one of the things to kind of look out for, because there's got to be a point where the number gets high enough and sharps come back the other way on Seattle. I mean, you're talking about Philadelphia, a road favorite at Seattle on the Sunday night game. It's just like Seattle just feels like the right side at this price.
And a road favorite of 6 even. And it's kind of funny because, you talk about those games where you just feel like, okay, sharp action's coming at some point. It does, and then it never wins this year because all the favorites just keep covering. It's a crazy year in the NFL where almost everything that we knew about betting the NFL, you have to throw it out the window because you've got these teams that just keep covering no matter what.
Yeah, and the thing that's kind of been bothering me a lot is just like the way some of these teams cover as well. It's just like, they say, come on, really? That's just not supposed to happen. They just like late field goals, late turnovers. We've had stuff where, the team trying to come back is, in the last play of the game, they're throwing the kickoff around back and forth, and the other team ends up scoring a touchdown to cover the spread and all that kind of stuff. Just weird stuff like that seems to be happening over and over.
Yeah, and it happens to the Cleveland Browns, who find ways not to cover every single week. All right, let's touch on the games here that do have sharp action out there. We'll start with game 351, 352. Detroit takes on Baltimore. Pretty standard line here. Baltimore 3-point favorite. But it's the total that's drawn some sharp involvement here.
Yeah, I mean, Baltimore, their defense has been, kind of one of their strong suits. But I do have sharp action on this one that goes on the over. So, part of that, I guess, is the combination of the two teams involved in that. If you look at like the past 4 games, I think for both these teams, they both picked up their scoring quite a bit. So it's just kind of like maybe just like one of those recipes where both of the teams' offense is kind of getting on track a little bit better. I think they both scored, quite a few points. Like I said, both the past 4, I took a quick look and went back, and it's like, yeah, this number kind of makes sense. We're up to 43.5 now, so that's quite a substantial move off the number 41 all the way up to 43.5. And again, public money's on the over, no surprise there at all. So Detroit's, had that rough week last week, and Baltimore's, like I said, Baltimore's playing a little bit better, and you got two teams that are 6-5 as well. So it's kind of like a key game in terms of like the wild card and playoff positioning and stuff like that. So it's it's not like a marquee game and not really marquee teams, I don't think, but it's one of the more interesting games of the week, I think, because the big difference between being 7-5 and 6-6 in terms of playoff positioning is quite big, I think.
Well, and this is another interesting one where you've got this total going up, and you would think that would favor Detroit because Baltimore can't move the football. They're last in the league in yards per play, have that good defense, but we haven't seen any correlated movement with the side. So I wonder if that's still coming. I wonder if we get under buyback from the sharp guys on game day. Again, this is all part of putting the pieces of the puzzle together and trying to figure this stuff out in the NFL. So that's another one that we'll have to follow. Let's move down one spot here. Game 353. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like in terms of these two teams and the number, I mean, if in hindsight, if you could go back and do stuff again, you could say that this number of 41 maybe was a bit low. And again, if you look, Detroit, I think if you go back to their past 4 games, they put up like 23, 27, 38, 30. So they're kind of looking like the offense that they had previously, and Baltimore as well. They put up 23, 23, 20, and 40 in their past 4. So just kind of looking at that stuff in recent history. And again, Baltimore is supposed to have that strong defense, and Detroit's got that decent offense, and it seems like they're both kind of clicking right now. So hindsight being what it is, maybe like a 42.5 and 43 would have been the right number to start off with.
All right, we'll slide down one spot on the board here. We got some sharp side action in this one. Game 353, 354. San Francisco takes on Chicago. Ugly game on paper, but all of a sudden with the 49ers going with Jimmy Garoppolo, a little bit more intrigue to this one.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know, what the motivation behind this one, but again, you're talking about two teams who, one of San Francisco's only won once all season, and Chicago's like 3-8, and they've lost 4 games in a row. And again, sharps find value wherever they can, whether it's the Jimmy G factor or not, we'll find out. But I did get sharp action on San Francisco at +5. This line right now, right here, is like -3, -120. I think there's some like -3, -115s, and there are also some 3, -125s out there. So maybe like a 10-cent variance in terms of the spread, but everyone's down to 3 on this one. And perhaps no surprise that, Garoppolo is kind of like, even though the guy hasn't played a whole lot, he's kind of got the household name almost, and people are kind of behind him in terms of the public bet so far. I've got a wager count almost 3-1 favoring San Francisco. So it's kind of, I find it a little bit strange in just the fact that Chicago is at home and San Francisco's only won 1 game all year, that the public is getting behind San Francisco. But I think that's got to be the quarterback situation driving that. But unfortunately for me, we do have sharp money on San Francisco, like I said, +5. And you wonder almost at some point it becomes counterproductive to actually want to win this game between these two teams. I mean, draft positioning, you got to start scratching your head and thinking about that. But San Francisco, going with the new quarterback, 1-10 on the road, and they got sharp money +5.
Yeah, as if there isn't enough to think about in the NFL. Now you start thinking about teams that are tanking for draft position here over the last, 5 weeks of the regular season. So it's always something in the NFL. Yeah, right.
If that happens.
Right. You mean if the Browns go 0-16? Yeah, exactly. All right. We've got some sharp action here. Game 365, 366, Battle of the Bays. Tampa Bay, Green Bay. This one up at Lambeau Field. An interesting move on this game.
I was going to say about the Browns for a second. They got a pretty good chance of doing that, don't they?
Yeah. I mean they're getting 14 against the Chargers team that plays close games into the fourth quarter every single week.
Yeah, if you want to look at the easiest game on the schedule, if you want to call it easy when you haven't won one yet, that's at Chicago. And then they're on the road on that one. So, it's kind of being a suffering Browns fan if there's any left out there. Battle of the Bays, yes, Tampa Bay and Green Bay. We've seen a line flop on this one. Tampa Bay did open up as a 2-point favorite on the road at Green Bay. Lo and behold, now Green Bay is a 2-point favorite at home. I've got sharp money on Green Bay here at +1.5. So obviously there's been sharp money on Green Bay elsewhere as well to drive that number right through. Now I do have public money back in Green Bay as well, so I got sharp action and public on the Packers. My wager count is actually quite strong on this one, almost 6-1 favoring the Packers. So that's a big count. And from the public side of things, it could just be your most recent memory was the fact that Green Bay and how close they hung with Pittsburgh last week, and they put up a good fight in that game. But still, they have lost 5 or 6 games and lost 2 in a row. I think it's funny with this one too, with Tampa Bay and the quarterback situation. Looks like Winston, he's upgraded to probable. Yet this line still went from Tampa Bay as a 2-point favorite to a 2-point dog. But sharps, Green Bay +1.5. And like I said, Green Bay is now a 2-point favorite at home.
Well, and this is what I talked about in the previous Super Contest segment, that to me, I just can't make Tampa Bay a road favorite over anybody aside from like Chicago, Cleveland, and San Francisco probably. And that even depends on the travel spot against San Francisco. So, sometimes sometimes it's just that cut and dry. You've got numbers guys that say, this team can't be a road favorite. I'm going to play the other side. So, who knows what'll happen and what'll transpire here in this game. But, it may be as simple as that, especially with the announcement that Winston's playing and the line's still going the other way. So, again, we'll have to see how that one plays out for the sharp guys that did hop in on it. One more game to touch on here in the NFL, game 367, 368. Kansas City takes on the New York Jets. Kansas City, you want to talk about a free-falling team. whew, man, they're in a bad way right now.
Yeah, and it's the strange thing with them as well. It's like nothing really happened. Like, they didn't suffer any, a massive injury somewhere along the line. They just kind of started slowly falling apart. Very, very strange what happened to that team. And they've lost 3 in a row and lost 5 of 6. The Jets, of course, have lost 5 of 6 as well. So it's not like they're any world beaters. But it's kind of strange that we're talking about this game right now. If we talked about a few weeks ago, like when Kansas City was going good, how they started so well, you'd be saying this easily a 7-point favorite. Now they're down like 3 minus 120 on the road, and I think this number's just might drop into 3 flat. Sharp money is on the Jets at +5 as well. And, my wager counts used to be like way one-sided favoring Kansas City, and it still is one-sided, but it's not even 2-1 favoring Kansas City. I guess, it doesn't take long for the public to turn on a team after you get burnt too often. That's basically what's happened with the public backing them. They got on them when they started rolling early in the season. They kept on baiting them. I just kept on getting burnt. So that Kansas City money that we used to be able to count on, that's definitely slowed down. Same with the over money. We used to be able to count on over money with Kansas City. That's not the case anymore either. I've got a wager count dead even in terms of my total on this game. So my counts, just slightly one-sided favoring Kansas City. The total is dead flat. Sharp money on the Jets +5.
One last thing I want to ask you about here, and I'll let you go. We talked about this in the past, that the Jets are your biggest season win total decision, and you need them to find a way to win one more game here. They've got 5 games left, Chiefs at home, at Denver, which even though Denver is not very good, going to the Mile High City is not easy. At New Orleans, which doesn't look like a good spot for the Jets. Chargers at home, and then at the Patriots. With such a big decision from a season win total standpoint, do you start to look to maybe do some hedging of your own there at the book over these next 5 games, or do you just kind of let it play out how it's going to play out?
Well, you did kind of paint a gloomy picture for us there, Adam. Denver's probably the best spot for them to get that win, but no, you really just have to book the futures on their own and book the games on their own as well. You don't really want to look back and forth and say, well, who do we need there and who do we need here and stuff like that. So we're just going to kind of hold our breath, even though they do have a kind of a tough swing of things with Kansas City, Denver, New Orleans, Chargers, and then New England. We're not going to be sitting there hoping and needing them to win on the road at New England to get that 5th win. So it's still kind of early to think about that stuff, and even then we probably don't really delve much into looking at that futures markets and looking at our game on a game-to-game basis. I do want to mention as well, like as I touched on, I think that Seattle number, Seattle's a 6-point home dog right now. I've got a whole lot of public money on the Eagles, so they've won 9 in a row. You can kind of figure that out. But I've got a wager count almost 3-1 going Philadelphia's way. So I just think something to look out for is if this number does touch 6 and then get bet back down. I wouldn't be surprised if that was sharp money that did that. And same with the Giants. The Giants look like one of those sneaky teams this week where I've got a wager count almost 2-1 favoring the Raiders. Now this number did go from 7.5 up to 9 so far. So Oakland's a 9-point favorite at home to the Giants. Now Giants are making the quarterback change and all that kind of stuff, and they're obviously not a very good football team. But I just get the sneaky feeling that the Oakland minus 7.5 was kind of like the right number. So if you see this one drop back down, I just want to mention it because I think that looks like one of those spots where sharps will come in and grab them, the Giants and Seattle. Just something to look out for. It may or may not happen.
Well, Brent, really appreciate your time as always, man. Thank you so much. Get back to booking that college basketball, and we'll talk to you again next week.
We love the hoops down here.